당가랑 정말 해지게 규대 and Lodrö Tendima,
so which Dharma is Rinpoche going to teach during this course? He will teach the instruction of the Dharma, which is known as the 7 points of mind training. This fortunate, the occasion of our having come together here at this particular time to hear the Dharma is a very fortunate one, and of course it should be appreciated accordingly. Even though presently it's all over the place holiday season and people go off to relax, to have holidays, we have come together here in order to hear the Dharma, and indeed there's great work to be done. So if indeed we have come together here with the intention to use our time for the purpose of learning the Dharma, of practicing the Dharma, then indeed the benefit that will come thereof will be great. And Rinpoche again wishes to stress how he rejoices in the fact of all of us having come together here, teacher and students having gathered in order to learn this Dharma of the greater vehicle of the Mahayana, known as the 7 points of mind training. If one should look at this teaching of the 7 points of mind training, wondering what they're about, one could say that within this teaching, within this instruction, there is contained the entire essence of all the teachings of the greater vehicle, of all the Mahayana Dharma. Now, whatever we might wish to learn in order to be able to put the practice of this Mahayana, of this great vehicle, into practice, to actually train in these teachings, all the relevant instructions are contained within this teaching of the sevenfold or the 7 points of mind training. Also Rinpoche says he, as the one who is about to teach these instructions to us, also he has again and again studied these texts, and he has, as a result of this, given rise to a little bit of bodhicitta from the bottom of his heart. During the course of His Holiness the 16th Karmapa Dorje imparting the transmission of the Dhamma instructions in Rumtek, in his Rumtek monastery in Sikkim, Rinpoche himself was present at that time, and during that time he has received the 2 types of bodhisattva commitments as they are being transmitted in the course of these teachings. Then again, when Rinpoche was in New York in 1991, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was imparting a Kalachakra empowerment, again in the course of these teachings and empowerments that were given there, Rinpoche received these commitments in the tradition of the far-reaching conduct.
Samotaji, Nika, no, Chekawa, Nika, Chekawa.
And again, when His Holiness Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche imparted these teachings and transmission in his own Shechen monastery, Shechen Thaye Darjeeling, as it is called, his monastery in Bodhanath, Nepal, Rinpoche again was fortunate enough to receive both these transmissions of the Bodhicitta commitment, both that of the far-reaching conduct as well as that of the profound view. So in this way, Rinpoche is in the full possession of the entire instructions concerning the Bodhisattva, Bodhicitta commitments and everything that goes with these instructions. And yet again, when His Eminence Thaye Situ Rinpoche stayed in Swayambunat in Nepal, when he imparted the Dharma cycle empowerments and transmissions, again on that occasion Rinpoche was fortunate enough to receive both streams of transmission.
Khenpo Söpa Tharchin, Lodrö Manda,
Then, many years ago, when Rinpoche was still young and he stayed in the Benchen monastery in Tibet, he received all of these instructions of how to implement bodhicitta, how to implement the 7 points of mind training, etc., from his own teacher, who was the Khenpo of Benchen monastery, known as Söpa Tharchin.
Thrangu Rinpoche,
and one teacher whom Tenga Rinpoche considers to have been particularly kind to him is the great Thrangu Rinpoche, from whom on several occasions Rinpoche was fortunate enough to receive instructions of the Bodhicharya Vatara, the entrance upon the path of the Bodhisattva conduct. Now, Rinpoche himself, having been fortunate to have met several of these great exalted beings who are true bodhisattvas in this world of ours, on top of that, having been fortunate enough to receive not only transmission but also instructions and elucidation on all of these from these great beings, Rinpoche thinks it is only appropriate and also beneficial for us if he imparts these teachings to us, so that we in turn may open our hearts, that we in turn may give rise to this enlightened attitude that is known as bodhicitta. Now, this particular teaching, which is known as the 7 points of mind training in Tibetan, is a teaching which particularly aims at our abandoning the habitual conditioning which predominantly lets us strive for our own benefit, and which allows us to give rise to an attitude which brings about benefit for all beings, so that we in turn may be able to give rise to this great bodhicitta, to this great awakened heart. And then it says there are 7 points of this mind training, which conveys the fact that there are 7 chapters or 7 subdivisions in which this teaching is being presented, which Rinpoche will then proceed to explain to us.
Chekawa, Yeshe, Dorje,
The author of this text of the 7 points of mind training is or was one of the great early masters of the Kadampa school, a Geshe, a great scholar and practitioner known as Chekawa, Yeshe Dorje. He has summarized all the teachings on mind training, on Bodhicitta, etc., which he himself had received in this text, which is the basis for our teaching here.
Jamgön Lodrö Thaye Songchu Yunglam Seba Tandike Telan Dera Theory. Then Natata Hojute Tati Dera Titan Hugo.
This text of Chekawa Yeshe Dorje, which is very brief, has been commented upon by various masters. One commentary was composed by the great first Kongtrul, Jamgön Kongtrul, Lodrö Thaye, which is known as the Highway to the Great Enlightenment. Based on this particular commentary, Rinpoche will teach these instructions.
Hatela Tamo Guru Madam Bodhisattva Bayo Nama Guru Lama Madam Sonji Bodhisattva Sonju Samba Te Tongji La San Salu Suan.
And this text starts out with a homage to all the previous masters. It starts out with the words to all the lamas, to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I prostrate and pay homage.
And then it's in the Sheparjapa, as of a Sambun Kolo, Nando, Dani Sole, Nambarja, Tomju Shabje, Bemon, Mesite, so the Sonji Jajatova, Samba Chamber, Benam, Kolo, yes. Then Kolo Jagon Kolo take it, then you get dripped over. Pete Janda, Sambun Kolo take a round and you got then it dripped over your head. Sugar dripped on Tomju, Sonji Jajatova, dripped over. The Shabga Penna, Mesite, Sogdentella, Rossum Kuba, Chambuget and Tapagamon, Sogdo Chains, so on their pines.
The text continues with a further homage in which it says, to the one who has turned the wheel of great love and kindness, and who has in this way spread the two types of benefits into all victoriously into all directions, to this one who is none other but the Buddha himself, I pay homage, I place his lotus feet upon my head, full of devotion, trust and confidence.
Sindru Doma, Sole, Dor, Jambarkin, Zemusu, Trachin, Jalve Selande, and Nindo Chambuke, Trosone, Trozindao. Tati Trozinta Latine, Damso, a part of the Japano, Koa Doma, Damso, part of the Dretobo, yes. The Drepabo, then Sontu some Papa and Jambayo Genes, last of Big, then Sontu some banana, then could be Sansawas in the Payan, could it again.
And the text continues with a praise now to the great Bodhisattvas, saying, those who out of great kindness and compassion guide the ship that leads through the ocean of suffering, those who with great courage do so, like the great Bodhisattvas, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, etc., to those I prostrate, to those I pay homage.
Yawa Tengen Rembana, Lameshala Sadio, and Tomba Ninja, Ninja Chambuke, Dambatanji, Sangina, then Lam Chambo Deba, Lam Zambo Dema. And Lana Mapatika gave him the Chodu Chabades, Lana Mape gave him, Yawa Tengen Remba Sonji, Tongi, Salam to Tuji, check the Dupanda, Yawa Tengen Rembana, and Rana Sonju Sanga, Dambatambe, Lameshala Sansaro.
And it continues saying, to the one who points out the path of inseparable emptiness and compassion, to the one who is like the to the one who is the highest, greatest spiritual friend or teacher, the one who is like the victorious ones, like all the victorious ones, the Buddhas themselves, to that kind teacher, to my own Lama, I prostrate and pay homage.
And the Tomba Tom Java, CG Java, Drechi, Lam, Cover, Metla, Rolling Devi, Yupato, Songi, Season Jepa, Tanti, Tata Songi, Sala, Pepsomante, Long Guyana, Sonjus and Lambda Latin, Pepsomante, Jepati Lambda. Digetana, call Lavos, Dig, Tana, and Lake Mapari, Latin, Rolling Devi, Yupato, Rolling Shanton, Devari, Thaye Sana, and digging Devada Kunga, Sombra Safari.
There follows the short introduction of what this text is about to explain, what is about to be taught. It says, this single path that has been traveled by all the victorious ones and their children, all of those who followed after them. This great path, which is a path free of any mistakes, free of any errors, which is easy to enter upon. This path is of such profundity that indeed it enables us to bring about the full awakening of Buddhahood. And this path, as the commentator here says, I am about to teach. Then our author continues to say that this particular teaching, this special teaching, which deals with the 7 points of mind training, is about to be presented in 3 points. Now, concerning this particular teaching of the 7 points of mind training, there are a great many different treatises and commentaries, instruction manuals, etc., which explain how to go about the giving rise of the bodhisattva attitude within oneself, how to go about the practice itself. This particular text here is considered as very special among all of these different ones, and the 3 main points under, or the 3 main headings under which the teachings will be presented are first the actual lineage of how this teaching was being transmitted, then that which has to be known, and then finally the main part of the instructions themselves. Talking about the actual origin, the actual lineages of transmission of this particular teachings, there are 2 major traditions which have already been mentioned briefly. The one of them is the one called the tradition of the far-reaching conduct, and the other one is known as the tradition of the profound view. Looking at the first tradition, the tradition of the so-called far-reaching conduct, it originated with the great Bodhisattva known as the son of the victorious ones, Asanga, a great early Indian master, who for 12 years intensively practiced the meditations and supplications to the future Buddha. Maitreya beheld a vision of Maitreya, and who then, after this, in the presence of Maitreya himself, in the pure realm of Tushita, received teachings from Buddha, from the future Buddha Maitreya. These teachings which he received are known as the 5 Dharmas, or the 5 teachings of Maitreya, and they form the origin of the first tradition of this giving rise to the bodhisattva attitude known as far-reaching conduct.
was. Then they Damba the no Kalayan, Dombo member song to the Sanka Damba Tena. The Jason Juba song to the Sanka Damba, Tendawa, Gumbat and Riki.
In this way, the great master Asanga received this tradition of the far-reaching conduct from the future Buddha Maitreya himself. As these teachings and transmissions, particularly the Bodhisattva conduct, the Bodhisattva commitments are then being imparted upon students, within this tradition it is necessary that the practitioner who decides to take this Bodhisattva vow is already a holder of one of the various types of vows or commitments of individual liberation, either that of a fully ordained monk or nun, or that of a novice, or that of a layperson.
And then Papa told me, then Khenpo Söpa Tharchin, then Rumtek and the Jaga Pantata Mombo Shelama, then Songchu Samba selling Palana. And selling back and then Dorje, Atisha, saying over here, and Dilgo Khyentse.
So this transmission was then handed down from Asanga to his own students, the great Mahapandita Yignan, we're not sure about his Sanskrit name, who in turn transmitted this to his Ashwagosha. Okay, das war ein Tipp von den Experten. Eventuell also Ashwagosha, der dieses wiederum weitergab, who transmitted this to his own students, the great master Selingpa, who in turn transmitted it to the great master Atisha. Now Atisha himself traveled to Tibet, as is well known, and in this way this transmission was brought to Tibet through him. And then there's the second type of this transmission, known as the lineage or the transmission of profound view. This goes back all the way to the Bodhisattva Manjushri. In this particular tradition, it is sufficient for any individual to have given rise to the wish of taking this Bodhisattva Bodhicitta commitment upon themselves, whether or not they are holders of such vows of monastic or lay ordination. In this particular case, is irrelevant. Every ordinary person, male or female, whoever has the wish to take this vow upon themselves, can do so according to that lineage. In this particular tradition, we receive at the same time both types of commitment, not only that of intention, but that of implementation as well. Now this lineage in turn, as has already been said, originated with the Bodhisattva Manjushri. He taught it to the great Indian master Nagarjuna, who in turn taught it to Shantideva, etc. And this way this lineage has been transmitted. And also the second lineage of the so-called profound view was then eventually transmitted to the great Atisha. So in this way Atisha was a holder of both lineages. So Rinpoche would like to call this morning session to a close now, and now whatever merits may have been accumulated in the course of this morning session, let us dedicate it now for the welfare of beings.
저런 도진 체조든 자 투는 와. 다 다리 다 용은 장용으로 와. 제인들 되니까 나라라 들리리서 저러나 들리리서 저러 가리리서가 들리리서 다 저런서 집에가 깨잘로지 던지 희네 다 접어진다 그래.
Well, as usual in the course of being at home, doing our works, usually we suffer tremendously from not being able to meet with our Dharma brothers and sisters. But now we have come together here, and Rinpoche says now it is the time for a lot of catching up to do, so there will be ample opportunity for all of us to get together and to chat and talk about what it is that we and others and you and you and you and so forth have been doing in the course of last year.
And it gave us a
Now we dedicate the merits.